If you like to laugh, and who doesn't, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to My Funny House with the Powell brothers. Frank Powell is a real estate broker who was born and raised in San Diego, along with Frank's brother Mark, a real estate broker who also lives in San Diego. Each week, the Powell brothers bring in a special guest comedian to share hilarious real estate stories so you can learn what can go really right and what can go really wrong with home improvements and home ownership. So now, let's get into it. With My Funny House, here are your hosts, Frank and Mark Powell on The Answer San Diego.
Good morning, San Diego. Welcome to another episode of My Funny House with the Powell brothers. My name is Mark Powell.
And my name is Frank Powell. I'm a broker together with the Powell brothers. And today, we got lucky enough to get our co-host again, James Schrader is in the house, the legendary comedian. He's a comedian. He's an actor. He's the face of Dr. Squash for all you guys who watch him on YouTube. And man, he is killing it out there in the comedy world. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me again. I appreciate the fake applause at my name too. That's always nice.
That wasn't real? I always thought that was real.
There are not hundreds of people here.
Okay.
And for those of you who are watching us on YouTube, we have some of his merch.
We wore the shirts.
This was not the plan though. It really wasn't.
I know.
But I appreciate it.
But I wore it 2 weeks in a row. Can you imagine?
Yeah,
I washed it, but I washed it.
But if you like the shirt, it's just we're just all humans. We're just a bunch of naked people running around on the planet. You can go to my website, jamesschrader.com, and get your very own.
You got to check out the way they wrote the word human. It's a bunch of people holding each other.
When people see this, it's very funny because I'll be walking up and they see my shirt like, oh, human, cool. And then as they get closer, they're like,
humans.
Oh, those are naked people. I'm like, yes, they are.
Well, yeah, but they're cartoons.
Yes, they're cartoons.
They're not really.
But they're people.
People.
They're people.
Hey, today we're going to talk about something that many people have asked me. They probably asked James, they asked Frank, is buying a fixer worth it? And a fixer is a home that has issues.
A fixer is a home that has potential to fix it up and put it back on the market and make a lot of money.
Well, Frank, do you think James, do you think buying a fixer is worth it?
I think, I have friends that have the skill set to do it. And I've seen them do it successfully, but I've also seen them buy a house that they're like, this is a good deal, but I'm going to have to put in a few months and I'm going to kill myself and I'm going to have to do it on the cheap and I'll be able to make money. And the few months turns into a year and then they're paying a mortgage for a year. They don't have a renter or they're not flipping it. And so I think it's something that it's something that the average person should be very weary of getting into unless you really know what you're doing. You're prepared to do the work yourself. Because I think the margins are not as big as people think they are.
Everyone thinks the problem, I think, a challenge is that they watch a program and they show a beautiful couple.
Oh, those shows are the worst. Those shows
right.
are so bad. I think they steer people in such the wrong direction because they make it look like, oh, you just get a sledgehammer. We're going to take out this wall. They talk to an architect. They talk to an engineer. They had all these things to do. The TV show makes it look like it all happens in 30 minutes. Yeah.
Well, they call them reality shows, but the reality is it's not the reality.
Mark, remember that time you took a sledgehammer to your house, but you weren't selling it?
Oh yeah,
that fixer.
That's right.
Okay, so I think it's
I'm still in therapy about that. Thanks for bringing that up.
Which is good, but you haven't grabbed the sledgehammer since, and that's what counts.
No. Yeah, put the sledgehammer down. I think that James has a good point. The problem is with fixers, if you're not a general contractor or if you don't have what James said, the skill set of doing something. So here's what you do. It's a very easy way to determine whether or not you want to buy a fixer and flip it. Ask yourself this. Have you ever changed a garbage disposal? We'll make it easy. Have you ever changed a toilet? Have you ever put in a sink? Have you ever put in a granite countertop? If you have not, a fixer is not for you.
But even with I've done everything you've said. I didn't put granite in, but I put in hardwood butcher block countertop. I've done everything you've said. I do not feel like I would be capable enough to gut a house, retile the floor, put in new carpet, tile a bathroom. It's more than that.
Absolutely.
From what I see. If the margin is there that you think you're going to make all this money, so much work has to be done that is more than a toilet, a garbage disposal, and a countertop.
Well, some people believe that they can hire people to do those things and that it's still going to be less than if I bought a house at fair market value or whatever the market value is at the time.
There is places in America where you can buy and flip a house, but I'm going to tell you something that just happened. And now what month are we in? So, depending on when you're hearing this, we're in May 2021, correct? Or
Yes.
no, we're in June.
No, we're in
June.
God, I don't even
we're
know
in
where.
June.
Okay,
Yeah.
so has anyone been to any big box or lumber yards?
I have.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Do you
Yeah.
did you see how much a piece of this is a 4x8 sheet of plywood costs now? Mark, what does it cost?
It costs between $90 and $100 a sheet.
Okay,
So I haven't looked into the plywood part, but I remember like I just priced out some 2x4s. 2x4s used to be like $2.25,
Right.
and now they're
Yes.
like $6.50 to $8.
correct.
That's right. A 2x4.
They're between $2 and $3 forever. Used to be able to make, your skateboard jumps. Your kid wants to jump on his bicycle, get a piece of plywood. Those are like $4 or $5, $10 a sheet. But now they're 90. So take that in consideration when you want to build and sell. The cost of materials has went up 75 to 100 to
quadrupled.
400%.
Quadrupled.
Right.
Now I do think like I think the whole concept of a fixer upper you could separate it to like, are you trying to flip this house for a profit, or are you trying to move your family into a house that's more affordable because it needs some work? And I think that's two different philosophies to look at. Like if you're trying to flip
Right.
it and do it and you don't do these things, this isn't for you. This isn't, if you think you're going to make a bunch of money easy, you're not. But if it's the kind of thing where like, hey, it's a fixer-upper, but we can live in it for now and slowly do the work ourselves some and slowly hire people, I think that's a different topic that you shouldn't steer clear of if you're willing to live in a house that looks like it's from 1979 and slowly like, this year we're going to budget this much for a new kitchen.
Well,
and next year we're going to budget this much for a new bathroom.
I just retroed my house and made it look like it's from 1970.
I love the old house.
It's so nice.
I hate seeing new listings that are like, we just fixed everything.
Those
I'm like,
old bathrooms with a really cool tile in
Yeah.
there.
yeah,
leave those
green
alone.
countertops.
Correct.
Yeah.
The avocado green. It's going
Frank,
to come back.
Okay, speaking on that same line, then what is something called a cosmetic fixer? Can you explain that?
Well,
please?
cosmetic fixer is something that you just takes a little cosmetic, very little to make it nice. So that would include paint, maybe a little bit of stucco, doing the landscape, very, very simple things where you have cosmetically it's going to look good. But the internal part, the roof, the foundation,
Right.
the plumbing are solid.
So the bones are good.
Correct.
You just need a facelift.
Right.
There you go.
But in order to determine what needs to be repaired, what would you recommend a person doing if they're going to buy a fixer?
If you're going to buy a fixer, you want to make sure that you get an inspection,
What kind of an inspection?
a home inspection.
How does that work?
So the way you do it is that there's people out there that do home inspections. So you always want to grab an inspector. Typically what Mark and I do when we're selecting an inspector is make sure they've been on the job for full time for over 5 years and don't have a lawsuit. Okay, so that's how you do the background check. You want to make sure the inspector is licensed and bond so he doesn't get injured on your property. If he does, he's covered. But that guy will go around with a tooth and comb and write down everything that needs to be fixed, and he'll give you a report within 72 hours of everything you need to do, including photos.
Now, what if you just have a friend that knows things about houses? Is that good enough?
Well, it depends what his background is. If he's a general contractor, he knows a lot, sure, you can have him go, because if you take two inspectors and your friend, each of them are going to find different things wrong because it's something that you can't find everything. So it's always good to have a friend to point out, but if you want a professional, hire a professional.
Well, if you get a house that needs a lot of fixing and you want to get a loan on it, let's say that the house has a hole in the roof, like a substantial hole. What's the problem with trying to buy a house like that?
Well, the underwriters are going to have certain things and conditions that have to be good on the house before they do a loan on it. It's just like anything. If you're going to give somebody money and give them a loan, you want to make sure that the house is sellable. So things like a cracked foundation, a hole in the roof, a major hardscape violations, unpermitted parts of it have to be fixed, or you're not going to qualify for the loan.
Okay.
Now, tell me this. Like, I think in people's minds, and even I'm probably guilty of this, where like you see a house or some listing come up, or even like I just drive around the neighborhood and you see some house that looks really rough. And in my mind, like, oh, if that, maybe that I should go talk to them. Maybe that's going to come up really cheap, or I could get it really, really cheap compared to the rest of the houses in the neighborhood. How much cheaper are fixer uppers? Like, do they really? Are you saving a ton, or is it like you think it's more, but they're still getting the value?
Well, on an average,
Depends what the market is.
on an average, it's about 8%.
That doesn't sound like enough.
No, sometimes it's not, because if you see a house that's 8% less or anything lower than 8% less, oftentimes all cash investor buyers go in there and they'll tell the seller, "Hey, I'll buy your house all cash. I'll close in 10 days, and you don't have to do anything." You know,
No loan, no
no nothing.
inspection.
You know? But
no
I don't think they're
appraisal.
doing the seller anything good, because if you want to sell a house and you want to get the most money possible, I think you should put it on the market and get as many offers as you can.
And that's a professional negotiator for you.
Correct.
They always make it seem like it's so difficult. The guys will come in, hey, I'll give you all cash. You don't have to get a loan. You don't have to get an appraiser. You can. Everything's easy if you have someone helping you. So don't just take that low ball offer, because sometimes you're going to lose $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 because you don't want to wait a month.
So Frank or James, let me ask you a question. You always have to expect the unexpected. So, and I know that we all have experience with homes. What is one thing that you may not expect when you're buying a fixer? Can you think of something?
Oh, I can think of a lot of things.
Name
I'll name a few. Okay, there's houses that have a tree that grew in the front yard. Okay. Beautiful tree at first. Maybe
they planted it. They planted it 30 years ago when they
Correct.
bought the house.
Exactly.
It was a great idea.
Was
at
it
the
a
time.
Benjamin ficus tree?
Right.
Did
So
you know?
there's certain trees, and Benjamin ficus is a good one. The other one is a rubber plant, that actually the roots are able to they can hear the water coming down your pipes. They will go underground. They will wrap around your pipes like a snake and constrict them and crush them. And you have all this pipe damage under your house. So that's one of the things you can't see because it's underground, but you're realizing that the toilet gets clogged every time, or every other time you flush. The water pressure is not good, and so forth. So there's a whole bunch of surprises like that. And that's why I hire professionals to make sure you don't get one of those.
But how would you find out that there's
Easy. You get, okay, so when you have the Powell brothers helping you,
right.
We go, hey, listen, you had a tree out there, we saw the stump, or there's an active tree. We want to make sure that we check your pipes. We hire a person that comes in and he has a scope. The scope will be put down the toilet or put down the pipe.
You mean like a camera?
It's a camera, and you can see it live, and they actually make a CD for you, or a YouTube, and you see what's going down there. And they go down and they see whether or not there's clogs, whether or not there's damage to the pipes, if it's corroded, if it's crushed, or
even
just
clogged up. I mean, I was in that industry for about 9 years in Florida.
Right. Really?
We inspected
know
pipes.
That.
Yeah, we did. I did mainly like sewer and storm, mainly bigger stuff in the street. But we would do jobs where we'd be, we'd go down to clean out in the house.
Mm-hmm.
We'd see what was going on. We had a small push camera. It was about 2 inches. It had lights. You could see a little screen on the reel.
Right.
And we could push about 150 feet. And I was always shocked. I mean, before I was into it, to see like, if the people that lived in your house fried a lot of food or just cooked in a greasy way, and they were just putting that down, you would have, your 4-inch line that's running from your house, and maybe it's going underneath your driveway and whatever. If that's full of grease, and you have one small leak that's letting some dirt in, and that mixes, like, people, it's the kind of thing where, like, be careful what you put down your pipes, because you think it's liquid grease, and I'll just run hot water. 12 feet in, that cools down and it solidifies and turns into goo. And that causes problems. It just builds and builds and builds over time.
So, James, you are a cardiologist for homes.
Well, we would do like the main infrastructure. We mainly did like streets and things like that. Like from the sidewalk up to the house, we didn't do as often.
So you'd have to do a bypass then if it was too close.
Oh, yeah, man. We were fixing pipes, cleaning pipes, grouting pipes, manholes. We'd make sure that everything, past the house.
So their blood thinner is Drano.
Hey, let me ask you something. Yeah. Have you ever heard of these people that you can go in there and you can coat a pipe?
Yeah.
There's
a number of different ways to do it. And right now it's really big. The technology it's called cured in place pipe, CIPP.
Okay.
And it's pretty much, there's a couple different ways to do it. They can literally go in, and this is the thing, like if you have a driveway or it runs into your house, and like this is happening to a neighbor of mine here in San Diego. It's a metal pipe that's 60 years old. It's at this point started corroding just because of time.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, it starts scaling on the insides and literally starts shrinking the pipe because the metal and stuff is
cast
scaling.
iron.
Yeah. And so what they do is they can go through, they can clean it, and then what they call cut it. So they jet it out to get any debris out. And then they can literally cut it, and they use a tool that'll use like a small piece of chain, or there's different types of heads, and they literally take it back to its original diameter, and they can do it very carefully, even if there's not a lot of metal left. And then there's a way they can do two different things. They can there's an epoxy mix where they can go and literally brush a coat, and then that cures, and then they do it again, and they can like brush multiple coats and create an epoxy And I think
So it's
that's for
smooth.
like the small. So it's smooth,
Yeah.
fresh, brand new, stronger pipe. Or what they can do is an inversion where it's literally a fiberglass sock that they measure the length of the line.
Right.
And they can do this, like I said, without digging. It's like no dig solution. So they can do it without digging up your driveway, without cutting holes and things. They might have to cut like a small hole just to access the pipe under the house. But that's way better than like digging up and replacing it. And so what they do is they literally blow this sock in and it inverts and it's impregnated with epoxy. And when that cures, you have a brand new pipe that it will be, I mean, that's a lifetime fix. That's technically stronger than what was there before.
So it's like a stent. It's a stent for
exactly.
for a house.
Yeah, except it's not necessarily meant to like open it back up.
Correct.
It's more like it's going to fill the void, and any leaks, any cracks, anything like that. Are
James,
now
what were some of the funny things or the strange things that you found clogging the drains in Florida? Did you find any like dead alligators?
There's a lot of video of alligators and animals. You'd see a lot of snakes and things like that, but those weren't really clogging.
Were they alive?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
They live in the sewer.
What if they come out of the toilet when you're?
That happens. That happens.
No, you're in the bathroom and an alligator comes out.
Not a gator, but a snake maybe. There's stories of snakes coming up and grabbing onto a guy's
really.
Oh my god,
hangers.
You don't want to get an egg-eating snake, right?
No. But I'm shocked at what ends up in toilets, especially people with kids know that. Like kid, like all of a sudden, like, hey, where's the comb? Hey, where's that screwdriver we had? And it's in the toilet and it's 3 feet down and clogging things up. And that's a problem. Yeah,
that is a huge problem. Okay, so that will.
I'm going to be careful. Yeah, before I sit on the toilet, make sure you look. There's nothing licking at you.
Yeah, make sure there's not a snake in there.
Flush it first,
or an alligator. Maybe you don't want to. You got to be careful. I wouldn't expect too much. Just take one little peek. I don't know. My kids have put stuff in the toilet that I was really surprised, and they always call me to take it out. And then it just happens that the rubber gloves that I put on are not long enough. Exactly. Oh, it's disgusting. But anyways, let's go to lunch.
That's when you know you're a real sewer guy. I was in the industry long enough that you could stand in a manhole and watch the brown trout go by and then be like, what are we?
I was going to take a bathroom break, but now I'm not going to.
Okay, so this is the next question, okay? Is it better to buy a fixer, or is it better to buy a home that maybe somebody has already fixed? What do you guys think?
Well, it depends on who's buying the house, right, Mark? So when I bought my first house, that was a real fixer. Yeah, I was a lifeguard, and it was like crazy fixer, and I just saw it and I loved it. And I saw it in the from my eyes, I go, I can.
But you have a background in construction, right? You know how to do this, right? That's why you're good at real estate.
Yeah, and it was hard. It was tough. It was like 6 months of cutting, chopping, throwing away dump runs. But if you're a person that doesn't like to do that, or can't do that, or don't have the ability, obviously you don't want to get a fixer because it could be a nightmare. Things just will haunt you.
But at the same time, I think there's something about if you're, I think a lot of people look at the fixer like, well, I don't have a lot of money, and that will allow me to buy a better house than I would be able to if it was already fixed up. But I also think you can look at somebody like, you know what? We have the money for a house. We're ready to move on a bigger house. Maybe our family's growing. But you know what? We really want it because I see a lot of the ones that have already been fixed up, if you will. I'll put that in quotes. And I'm like, I wouldn't have chose that. I don't like that counter. I don't like that thing.
Hey, James, how much do you think YouTube has helped people who are buying fixers?
Well, you can learn how to do anything on YouTube.
God, so I use it all the time.
And by learn, you can convince yourself that this is easier than I thought it was, and it's going to take 10 times as long, and there's a 70% chance you're going to have to call a professional anyway.
Yeah,
so careful with the YouTube.
Exactly, especially when it comes to electrical. Frank, would you recommend somebody like maybe replacing an electrical panel or something like that who's never done it before?
A panel?
Yeah.
No, don't touch your panel.
No. Don't touch anything. If it has wires, get an electrician. And
what about plumbing? Because
get a plumber.
That's true.
Whenever it has to do with electrical or it has to do with something that could possibly leak, there's a lot of tricks of the trade that you don't know about to ensure that the pipes are solid, the 90-degree turns are solid. There's not going to be any
leaks. Let me
ask
you, but how about replacing, like you were talking about, replacing a garbage disposal? Do you really need a plumber to do that?
No, you can do that.
I think that's easy. Yeah,
you can do that with 3 bloody knuckles and a long weekend. You can get through that.
Yeah, and then or like a faucet. That's not that bad.
No, that's easy. I mean, I literally there's this 18-year-old person on YouTube showing how to install this Badger disposal, and she did it so well that I followed her, and it was perfect. I did it; it was easy. But there's other things that people that have a really good talent make look easy, and you don't want to do that.
Right.
Even with painting, like everyone can paint, but not everyone can be a professional painter. So you think those lines and those cuts are easy to do, and you have to know a lot about the paint, a lot about the application, a lot about prepping the area. So even painting, you may want to
we
get
talked
a
about
professional.
toilets here for a second because I had to change a toilet, and I bought this toilet that comes with a CO2 cartridge. You guys ever seen these things?
No.
You didn't buy it. You bought a toilet
I bought.
plunger.
No, I actually. I
Oh,
did.
you-
I bought.
your toilet has one.
Your toilet has a CO2 cartridge?
Yeah, you push.
What
yeah.
are you doing to your toilet?
I don't exactly.
Wait, what does this do? Go
I
on.
think I
Turbo
might.
toilet.
When you depress the water and it flushes, it gives pressure in
A
the
little
toilet.
bit of pressure
You know?
to travel.
I either have to. I had to buy that or change my diet. So I decided that I was
My
going to
mind is blown.
Yeah.
I still don't get what the pressure.
inside the toilet where the water goes. On the old other toilets, you push it, a flap comes up, and water
Oh,
naturally.
and okay. And this one has like almost like it looks like a tank.
Yes.
And when that water flows, it's
It
like
goes out
high
hard.
pressure,
Yes,
low
yes.
vol. God,
You think
okay.
that's would
No,
that
James,
be?
James said it right. It's high pressure, low volume. So you
Right.
get to save
That's it.
water.
That's exactly what it is. It's a high
Yeah.
pressure,
It's
low.
usually just the water that creates the pressure. So much water will push the
and it's
toilet
the
paper
head
down.
pressure of that. Like people realize, like the tank behind creates the head pressure to fill the bowl.
Right.
That goes above the P trap, which creates
Right.
the amount enough pressure to push that water through. And once
Correct.
it's going through, it's kind of like when you siphon gas. Like once the water's flowing, it creates its own vacuum and pulls the rest of it
Well,
out.
with gas prices as high as they are, I might start siphoning gas.
Siphoning
again,
gas,
and I
yeah.
might get a siphon. But James, you're correct. And the reason why I did it is because San Diego has a restriction on toilets.
On toilet flows.
Yeah, low
right?
flow toilets.
So what is that, Frank? What is?
Well, a low flow toilet means that they realize water is being wasted in the flushes when you have gallons of water being pushed. So the government, the feds made a law that says in order when you sell your house, one of the point of sales means that house has to be sold with a newer toilet, which means it flushes 1.7 liters a flush.
Is it 1.7?
I think
Liters
it-
or gallons?
1.6.
No, I think it's liters. I don't
Now,
know.
even
Yeah.
if it's a fixer-upper, you're saying every single
Every
house has to
house.
have.
And
So
there's-
even a fixer-upper, they're going to pick toilets?
I think when you sell the
Yes.
house, you have to.
when you sell the house.
Yeah, when you
Yeah,
sell
but
the
even
house.
if you live in a house, if you want to be part of the Green Deal and you're responsible,
Right.
get a low flow toilet. They make them, and now you can have them installed, and you will not waste as much water, especially when you have kids that keep flushing the toilet. That's gallons and gallons and gallons.
Well, so that's good to know. So when you're going to your convenience store, your handy duty construction store, whatever you decide to go to, you have selections on toilets.
If you want to know what you're flushing, look in the back of the toilet seat, and in it will tell you if it's a low flow or not. It'll
It's
tell
usually
you
on the
what-
bottom of the tank cover, right?
it's
You look
bo-
it up
yeah,
right there.
Yes. It's between the tank and the bottom.
And then some people are replacing their old flooring, whether it's carpet or tile, with this stuff with vinyl.
well, vinyl's
What is
waterproof.
vinyl? What is that stuff?
No, it's
It's
plastic.
plastic.
It's
Yeah.
plastic, but
Yeah.
it looks really cool. The images you have
I've
is
seen
very.
it. It looks
it's-
like wood.
yes, and it's manageable, but it's a very good product to put on a bathroom floor because it is waterproof, or a kitchen floor.
Frank, you just rehabbed your house and you didn't put granite countertops. You put something else. What did you put on your countertops? Well, like what is in your kitchen?
It's called quartzite.
What is that? Is that
Well, you know what quartz is, right? Everyone goes, "Oh, quartz countertop."
I have it in my watch.
Well, they take the quartzite, the actual stone, to grind it up to make these quartz countertops. So it's just a stone. It's a little bit more dense, solid than
is it
granite.
man-made or is it natural?
No, the quartzite is natural. Quartz is man-made. Quartz is typically about 80% stone and 20% resins and glues.
They used to make floors out of that, right? Like in the 70s, that was big, wasn't it?
Quartzite?
Yeah, wasn't that a thing where like
I
it was
don't
like
know.
it looked like a whole bunch of like shimmering rocks, and they would polish it flat? Was that a thing? Or am
I don't
I
know.
probably mixing it up?
Well, no, in the
I wasn't alive. I was guessing.
Well, I was alive in the 70s. They made floors in the nightclubs out of plexiglass. Remember those?
Oh, I remember
lit
those,
up.
Yeah, they had lit up. It's Saturday night. Saturday Night Fever.
Fever.
Remember?
Yeah, Mark, I remember your platform shoes.
I'm still wearing them.
Oh, okay.
I can be 5'4" now if I put those things on. You know. So fixing a house, buying a fixer and fixing a house.
I think James is correct. If you're going to buy it to save money, that's a good thing. And then you get a project every 6 months, you can do it. You will save money. But now
and get the house you want.
Well, maybe in San Diego. It's a little
over
bit different.
time. But what I mean by that is
correct.
you're gonna
Custom.
build the kitchen you want. You're gonna build the bathroom you want.
Yes.
You're not gonna walk into a house where somebody else walked in and said, what's hot right now? Do that. Everything's this color. Everything's this countertop.
Right.
Blah blah blah.
The challenge is not buying a house. The challenge is getting a piece of land. Okay, you want to buy that land. That land is valuable. The house is going to be switched. It's going to be fixed. It's going to get old. You're going to have to redo it all over. But get into the game. So if you can only afford a fixer, just get it.
So what if you have a fixer? What would be the best thing to do to make your house more energy efficient? What would you change out of that?
Oh man, there's a whole bunch you can change. One of them first is the windows, because usually you have a single pane window with aluminum frames. You want the double pane windows. Now, and you also want them UV rated, so when the sun hits them, you don't damage the furniture inside the house. So the first thing is windows.
Okay, what else?
I'm guessing you would do like your water heater. I'm sure that we have more efficient versions of that.
Yeah,
your air conditioning heaters, things like that are way more efficient.
Yes, they are more efficient. Also, you want to do insulation in the walls. A lot of houses are built without insulation between the exterior and interior.
It's just starting to add up now.
It's starting to add up. So when you start peeling the drywall back and you insulate it, insulation is not cheap anymore. But that's how you...
Hey, you know what? I also know that when you do, let's say you do change your heater, can you just change it, or do you have to get any type of government inspection?
No, you need a permit. You need to do it well.
What do you need a permit? Badges? We don't need no stinking badges.
We don't need no badges.
They're like, I'll just do the work myself. I'll just put in no, every step of the way, if you're putting in a new kitchen in, because isn't there a value or something? Like if you do work more than this X amount, you need to have an inspector come in. The plans need to be approved.
Yes.
If you move walls or open things or add windows or anything like you're going to be dealing with the county or the city. Yeah. You're going to have an inspector come out. You're going to need someone to draw up actual plans. You can't just draw it on a napkin and be like, all right, that's the kitchen we're building.
Exactly.
I'm putting another toilet here. It's not.
Exactly.
Okay. So you maybe, even if you can do the work yourself, you still have to go through all the steps that a contractor would go through if you hired them with the city, the county, all that stuff.
It's good to do for safety. It's also good to do because when you sell your house, you can say, all this is permitted, and people like that. That means an inspector saw it, a guy that knows he's doing double-checked it, and so forth and so on.
Well, we're coming kind of a little bit close to the end of the show, and I'd just like to know, first of all, I'd like to know, how do we get a hold of James? Because
James is killing it right now. And what has happened after this whole COVID, I think we're a little bit less restrictive. The comedians are now producing or doing shows live again. And if you've ever seen this guy live, it's way different than in here. In here, we have to tame him down. But you'll pee in your pants. It's way better than My Funny House. James, how do we get a hold of you?
You can get a hold of me at jamesschrader.com. And I will say on that, the clubs are opening up. Shows are happening all over, especially here in San Diego. Guys, there is so much comedy, and it's great comedy. Right. We have a really good scene. We're so close to LA. We get great names coming down too. So go on Facebook, go on Instagram, search for San Diego Comedy. There are shows all over. Literally every night of the week. The clubs are opening. The La Jolla Comedy Store has great shows every single weekend. The Madhouse Comedy Club is 7 nights a week.
And what about our friend Maria Herman?
Maria Herman runs
Comedy Heights.
Comedy Heights shows. Right. She has at least 2 or 3 shows, weekly shows, I think, that are going on.
She's also killing it. And I saw her on stage, and oh my God, compared to when she's here, it's very funny. James, how do we spell your last name really
Schrader, quick? Schrader. Just Google James Schrader. My dumb face will pop up.
Excellent. Mark, how do people get in touch with the Powell Brothers if they have some real estate needs?
You can look us up online at powellbrothersrealty.com, or you can give us a call or a text at 858-922-7725.
If you want to look at our faces, go to our YouTube channel. That's also the My Funny House with the Powell Brothers. You can see James, Mark, and I. We can all hang out together.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so next week we're going to have another great show. We've got another great topic and another great comedian. So we'd like to say thank you very much to all of our listeners for chiming in this morning. And we will see you next Saturday on My Funny House
with the Powell Brothers.
Bye-bye. Thank you, James.
Thank you. Be well. Hug your moms.
Take care.
Thanks so much for joining us today for My Funny House with the Powell Brothers, right here on The Answer San Diego. Join us next week as the Powell Brothers bring you more funny stories of what can go really right and what can go really wrong with home improvements and home ownership, and bring the laughs to you with yet another hilarious guest comedian. To find out more about the Powell Brothers, be sure to check out their website at powellbrothersrealty.com, or you can visit myfunnyhouse.com. Again, thanks for being with us, and we'll see you next week for My Funny House on The Answer San Diego.